The C.O.W.S, Gus T. Renegade and Justice, here to share constructive information on racism. Hopefully we can get to establish justice as soon as possible. Thank you for tuning into today's broadcast. Real important if you've been listening to the C.O.W.S. We have done several programs talking about COINTELPRO and things that very powerful white people and different enforcement agencies, the FBI, CIA, have done to harm and mistreat different non-white people who have worked against the system of racism. Today's guest, he authored 2 books specifically focused on how Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Was surveilled and ultimately executed, and the evidence would strongly suggest that this was carried out by very powerful white people and different enforcement agencies. Our guest today, in addition to offering 2 books, the first book, Orders to Kill, and the second book, Act of State, he also is an attorney, and he participated in the 1999 trial on the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. Real privilege to have him on the program today. Our guest, Mr. William Pepper. Mr. Pepper, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Outstanding. Thank you for taking out some of your time to share with us very important material. Real pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you. Gus, are we taping this or is this live?
This is live, sir.
Okay. I just have there's an emergency pending. I'm just if I may have to take a quick call, but let's just go forward.
Okay, doke.
It wouldn't be long if I have to do it, but let's go forward.
No problem. We'll take a commercial if anything comes up on your end.
Okay, I appreciate that.
No problem, sir. Could you share with our listeners just so they can get a better idea of who you are and why you have written these books and doing this work?
Well, it goes back a long way. I was a journalist in Vietnam in 1966, and when I came back, Dr. King read a piece that I wrote and saw photographs attached to it called The Children of Vietnam, and then asked to meet with me. That was in 1967. And as a result of that meeting and his request that I had a group called the National Conference for New Politics. It was an umbrella organization, peace and freedom umbrella organization that he participated in and helped lead, along with Benjamin Spock and Julian Bond and a number of others. I worked with him closely the last year of his life. I only knew him the last year of his life. Then when he was assassinated in 68, I pulled away from direct political activity. And 9 years later, Ralph Abernathy and I were talking, and he had asked me to go with him up to the prison to interview James Earl Ray. Which was a surprise. I thought Ralph had gone a bit round the bend, and would you have some question about Ray having done this? And it was widely assumed. I hadn't done any work on the case at all. Widely assumed that James was guilty. And Ralph said, "Well, I don't know. I just like you. I never confronted him. Never like you to come on up and just let's sit and talk with him and have you interrogate him." I said, "I don't know enough about the case, Ralph. It's going to take me quite a while to prepare." And this was in late 77, 78. I then worked on the. Started to read everything I get my hands on and worked on it and prepared and went up to the prison, the Brushy Mountain Penitentiary, with Ralph in August of 1978. And that started me the top of the slippery slope, which is even now not fully ended, but it's just about completed. And James was put under stress. I put him under very heavy questioning for a period of about 5 hours. And a number of the things that he said and issues that he raised were such significance that I decided to go into Memphis myself and begin to look at things. And so I started in '78, went into Memphis, started one of many trips over now what has been 31 years, and came convinced that there was much more there than had ever been revealed, and so I just began an investigation. Just went on and on up to the present time. And James, I met with him several times in prison, and he asked me to represent him at various stages. He had a petition for a habeas corpus petition filed at the Federal District Court in Memphis, and I refused for 9 years, almost 10 years. Finally, in '88, I was sufficiently convinced that he not only didn't kill Martin King, but that he was an unknowing patsy. And that was what was important. And I told him it's not going to be enough for me to know that you didn't kill Dr. King, but that you didn't participate in a knowing way, as far as I was concerned. And I came to that conclusion in '88, and I represented him. And I started. I took his. He was denied. His petition was denied at the trial court level, and we took it up to the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, and we were denied there, and we were denied certiorari with the Supreme Court. So that began this long sojourn, and I continued the investigation. When we reached a dead end in terms of the Supreme Court, we ultimately decided to try to do a television trial, which was put on by HBO and Thames Television of the UK, with Thames Television in the UK being the ones that really pushed it forward. I had moved my family to England in 1981 because of a series of threats that started to come in, and harassment that started to come in the United States. And I had very young children, and became unwilling to accept them picking up a telephone, hearing threats against their father, things of that sort. So I'd moved the family to England, actually to Cambridge, where I became a visiting fellow and scholar. And I would then commute to the United States from England as I worked on the case. We tried it. We did this television trial. It was shown on HBO and on Thames Television on the 25th anniversary of the assassination in 1993. The trial went on for 10 days. Hickman Ewing was a prosecutor. He is a former U.S. attorney in Memphis, and I defended. We went at it. It was no scripted trial, no holds barred. A formal federal judge was the trial judge. Jurors were chosen randomly from all over the country, and tried the case over a 10-day period. And at the end of it, the jury came back after 7 hours deliberation and found James Earl Ray not guilty, which was a major surprise to Hickman, of course, and to most people who watched it. And we had a fraction at that point of the evidence that has since emerged, because following that trial, then new witnesses came forward, new evidence came forward, and so from '93 to the present time, the investigation continued. Act of State was the second book, but the first one, Orders to Kill, was finished in '95, and it was followed up with Act of State. At Act of State, I wrote following the trial in '99. I was lead counsel for the family of Martin King at that point. We had a massive trial in Memphis that the media blocked out, just blacked it out entirely in the United States. We had trial went on for 30 days. We had 70 witnesses, and we laid out exactly how James was framed and how Martin King was killed. And So that's a snapshot of the history, and the third book I hope to have finished this spring, which will be the end of the story.
Wow. Okay. I want to try and pick out some of the highlights. Your book is very thorough. I hope people who listen to this program actually will check out both books, Orders to Kill and Active State, and we'll be looking out for the third book to come out this spring. Can you kind of give us the brief summary of the standard line, this is what happened, the assassination of Martin Luther King, the inaccurate version that you'll see in school textbooks and that you'll see on television, just the established view of what happened in Memphis, April 4th, 1968?
Well, the official story is that James Earl Ray was the lone assassin, that he had, for some reason or another, they never really quite could put a motive on it. Even the House Select Committee on Assassination said he wasn't a racist, which he wasn't. So they eliminated racism. And then I think they said there was, he was paid by some St. Louis businessman, who of course he never met, and never made any effort to collect any money. James was an escaped convict from Missouri Penitentiary, and he worked his way north to Canada, and he was going to leave the country. He wanted to leave the country, just get out of the country and get to Europe and then on to Africa. And so he went into a place called the Neptune Bar, which was a bar in Montreal, and he ran into a guy there. He was trying to get travel documents to get on a ship and get out of there, and he ran into a guy called Raoul, who of course government has always said didn't exist, and this fellow became his controller, his handler. He told him he would get him documents, but first he wanted him to help with some work he had in North America, and he wanted him to go back into the States. He offered to buy him a car, which he gave him the money, and James bought a white Mustang automobile, and 1965, I guess it was, and Raoul then would pay him sums of money to do various jobs, usually smuggle things from Canada to the United States, and then from the United States back and forth to Mexico. And he would go where they sent him. They kept him in Los Angeles for quite a long period of time. And I was told that there was Los Angeles was actually a potential place for the assassination to take place, and that it was certainly considered at one point, and he was kept there. Then they moved him into New Orleans and Atlanta, and the story was that he was tracking Dr. King. He would track him across the country in one place. Well, of course, that wasn't true. Martin King came from Detroit to Los Angeles, and James at the same time left Los Angeles just around the time he came in, on March 23rd, 24th of 1967. So he just was being moved around and being 68, 23rd, 24th March 68. He was being set up and being used. So the story was that he was a lone assassin. He tracked King, and eventually he bought a weapon in Birmingham, Alabama, which was alleged to be the murder weapon, carried it to Memphis, rented a room in a rooming house in Memphis that backed onto the Lorraine Motel, and that on the 4th of April, about 6 o'clock, he went into the bathroom in that rooming house, and through that bathroom window used the rifle he bought, shot King as he was standing on the balcony, went back to the room, grabbed his things, threw them into a bundle, and ran downstairs, out the front door, saw a police car pulled up to the curb perpendicular to the sidewalk where he was running, dropped the bundle in Knipe's amusement store. There's a little alcove there. Got into a Mustang, drove away, and then again fled into Canada, and this time went to the UK by flew there, and eventually went over to Portugal, came back, and was picked up, but he was on his way to Brussels on another flight, and arrested, held, charged in the United States. He had been identified, named as the killer, and extradited the basis of an affidavit from a man called Charles Stevens, who was a roomer in the rooming house, and who saw a man fleeing down the hallway of the rooming house. Just saw the back of his head as he went. As Charlie Stevens was dead drunk and couldn't see anyone, and that was well established. But nevertheless, they got an affidavit out of him, took him down to the police station, fed him cups of coffee, got an affidavit out of him, and that affidavit was the sole evidence used to extradite James. So he went back and was tried. That's the official history. He didn't really have a trial. Percy Foreman had come on as lawyer, he had been convinced to fire his first lawyers, the Haynes father and son, who were going to give him a trial. They were determined that he should have a trial. And Art Haynes believed, and as his son, I think to this day, believed they didn't have the evidence to convict him. So they got him to fire Haynes, brought on Foreman, well-known criminal lawyer from Houston, and Foreman just nurtured him along, and then finally one day, as I said to him around the 22nd of February, I think around there, 1969, sorry, said that you got to plead guilty. They've got you. No way I can defend you. The newspapers have convicted you. They're going to harass your family forever. And besides, my health is not good enough to give you your best defense. I'm in bad health. And it was that particular statement that led James to believe that he was not going to get the trial that he needed and wanted. Foreman said, you plead guilty, I'll give you $500. I'll give it to your brother Jerry, $500. You can hire yourself a new lawyer, and then you can set aside the guilty plea and get your trial. And James did that. Foreman gave his brother $500, and James was convicted on the 10th of March, 69. On the 12th of March, 69, he immediately filed a petition to reopen the case. And he'd been trying ever since 1969, March 13th, 12th, 13th, 1969. Tried ever since for the trial, which of course he never had. So that's the official story of the assassination.
Wow. Okay. In your book, and I'm hoping people who listen to this program, if you have not read Active State, I hope you will pick it up. Tons of just incredible information about this case. One of the big things that jumped out at me, you in your work on this case uncovered a lot of evidence that strongly suggested military involvement in the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. And you showed evidence that not only was there a strong military presence in Memphis on August 4th, 1968, but they had been conducting surveillance and illegal activities with regards to the civil rights movement dating back to 1963 and 64. Could you talk about the evidence that you unearthed detailing their military involvement in surveilling the civil rights movement on the whole, and specifically their activities in Memphis on April 4th with regards to photographers being in place to capture pictures of everything that was taking place, the special forces. You said that in your book that they would be better suited to do this sort of activity because they had more black people working for them. and even them offering special training to the Ku Klux Klan in exchange for information. Can you kind of talk about the military involvement in all this?
Well, yes. There was a very strong military coordination, although the Army snipers who were in Memphis, there were two snipers and 2 spotters as a part of an 8-man Alpha 184 unit. They did not kill Martin King. They were there, in my view, as a backup. They didn't know, the snipers didn't know they were there as a backup. They were just waiting for the orders to shoot. One was to hit King, the other was to hit Andrew Young, and they were ready to do that. They were coordinated from the 902nd Military Intelligence Group. It's the only MIG that's in the Pentagon, the bowels of the Pentagon, and it came under Major General William Yarborough, who is the Assistant Chief of Staff for Intelligence, and he effectively organized, but he put one in between him and the colonel who coordinated everything, and they had a black military intelligence officer who came out of retirement and was recalled to active duty in June of 1967. His name was Morrell McCullough, and he was then seconded to the Memphis Police Department and became qualified as a Memphis police officer. So he worked at intelligence both for the Memphis Police Department and for the military intelligence group. They always worked with anyone they could. They did provide special treatment and special facilities to the Klan for a variety of reasons and purposes. But the focus of this particular case put them in Memphis, really ostensibly for the purpose of the assassination, although, as I said, they were a backup. But I got this information from a journalist named Steve Tompkins, who wrote for the Memphis Commercial Appeal, and he conducted an investigation for a year and a half about the use of the Army in Quantal-Pro type of surveillance activity. And he said the Army had the civil rights leaders under surveillance going back to Dr. King's family, his father and mother. And so they were, this was a long-standing program that had been going on, and they had these surveillance operations that went really on from the second decade of the 20th century, right up to the time of the assassination and beyond. Stephen had done this work for over 18 months. It was to be a series of articles in the Commercial Appeal. It turned out to be one lengthy piece, and there was one small paragraph in there that caught my eye, and that was the one that dealt with the presence in Memphis of the Alpha 184 unit. So I went to see him and tried to involve him in my work and to try to get him to help me understand why that unit was there, because he had explicitly said in his article that it wasn't. No one could understand why they were there, what they were doing. Well, they were part of a very much larger group. The Army Security Agency was there. They were involved in electronic eavesdropping and wiretapping. All the phones, the key rooms at the motel were tapped. The 111th Military Intelligence Group had eye-to-eye surveillance on King, and the FBI was represented with agents. So he was fully sort of blanketed at that that point in time by military and law enforcement officials. And they were the backup. That's about basically all that I could say. Martin King was killed by a civilian sniper, but they were the backup. They were in the wings, just waiting. And if the civilian contract killer didn't get him, then the army were going to get him. They were never going to let him leave Memphis alive. He could, because of mainly his anti-war positions, which in many ways I had really fostered very strongly and encouraged, was a reason, because it was costing. The end of that war would have cost billions of dollars to major American corporations who were involved in the war effort. But the main reason, I think, was the Poor People's Campaign in Washington. He was going to bring about 500,000 people to Washington, and they were going to establish a site, a camp, and live there, and go to visit their congressmen and senators every day, and try to get them to put back into the budget social programs that had been drastically cut back by the Johnson administration because of the war effort. And the Army believed that King would not be able to maintain control of this group when they were continually frustrated by their elected representatives. And the belief was that the whole movement of 500,000 people would be taken over by more radical elements who would then lead a revolution. And they didn't have the troops to put down that revolution. They didn't have the troops to put down an onslaught of 500,000 people in Washington. People had seen what had happened in the streets of Paris. Remember, 100 cities had burned in America between 1967 and 68 as a result of civil rights disturbances and turbulence across the country. So the country and the government was very much on edge. And there was no way King was going to be allowed to bring that mob to Washington and to lead them, and then, in their mind, in their view, lose control of them and let a revolution begin. So that was the motivation behind the killing.
Again, our guest today, Mr. William Pepper, author of Act of State and Orders to Kill. Co-host Justice. She is a non-white female. She is all of 10 years old, but she is very interested in studying, learning about racism and how we can establish justice as soon as possible. Justice, if you're there and you have some questions, please go right ahead to ask Mr. Pepper.
Why do you study about Martin Luther King Jr.?
Why did I study about Martin Luther King Jr.?
Why? Why do you study about Martin Luther King Jr.?
Yeah. Well, I happen to think he's one of the seminal leaders for truth, justice, and peace that has been produced by any nation, but of course particularly by the United States, which is his home country and our republic. And I think he was such a critical person. He grew and matured into a tremendously powerful and important leader. And so I think he's so significant to the history of this country that he's one of those people that we should know a lot about and we should study. He was inspired by Gandhi and the whole ethic of civil disobedience and he sought the highest of human values, tried to bring the highest values of human beings and humanity to fruition, to life, to give them life in the daily lives of American people, in the public lives of the Republic. And he's an inspiration for that. And so I think he was a man I had admired for years before I met him, and I had been involved in the civil rights movement in the South as a Northerner, and I was on the Selma March, and it was just a kind of a natural progression in the search for truth and justice to follow his path and to learn as much as I could about him.
Why do white people keep information from non-white people?
I'm sorry, Justin, why do I what?
Why do white people keep information from non-white people?
Why do white people keep information from non-white people?
Yes.
Is that your question? Right. Justice, I think white people keep information from white people, not only non-white people. I think there is a suppression of evidence across races and ethnic groups in the United States, and it's part of a plan and a part of a system that does not want people to, whether they're white or non-white, to know the truth about many things. Because if they did know the truth, then they would question many aspects of the system of government under which, not only government, but economics, the economic system under which they live. So if people don't have the information about things that affect their daily lives, then they're much more easily led. So that's why information is suppressed, and not just for black people. It's suppressed for masses of white people as well.
Thank you. That'll be all.
Okay.
Again, Mr. William Pepper, author of Active State and Orders to Kill. In your book, you talk about a lot of different aspects of how the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. This is not an example of a textbook investigation. Crime scene is not preserved. Witnesses are not talked to. Can you talk about different aspects of the investigation that you feel further evidence that you had a lot of people who were invested in not only the plot to execute Martin Luther King Jr., but also the plot to suppress information about what actually happened in his death?
Well, I mean, there really was no investigation. The idea was that there was a predetermined outcome, and the idea was to organize all of the events and the facts so that they fit the predetermined outcome. There was no investigation. The crime scene itself was destroyed basically as they cut down all of the bushes and the grass behind the rooming house where the shot was fired from. They did not go house to house and do an investigation or interviews of people who might have seen things. I had to find people, 30 years, 25, 30 years later, who had vital information, who lived in the neighborhood. But they were never interviewed, never questioned. Earl Caldwell, who was a writer for the New York Times, was in the first floor, the ground floor of the rooming house, covering Dr. King's visit to Memphis. And when he heard the shot, he quickly raced outside in front of his door. He saw people in the bushes. He was never questioned. Reverend James Arn saw the smoke rising from the bushes. He was never questioned. there's a whole range of witnesses who just were never talked to. The information was suppressed, and then years later, when they did a congressional investigation in 1976 or 79, you had a similar duplication of a non-investigation, which cost the taxpayers quite a bit of money. So that's what happens. But we should be used to that. That type of criminal investigation. The basic work of the local police force could have solved this crime very quickly. It wasn't brought to the fore. I haven't investigated the John Kennedy assassination. I have to look into the Robert Kennedy one because colleagues asked me to look at the forensic evidence of Sirhan's guilt, and I did, and it was enormously lacking, and showed, in fact, his innocence. So I agreed a couple of years ago to take on the Sirhan matter now myself, and I'm representing Sirhan. But I haven't. I didn't look at 9/11. I haven't investigated 9/11, but many, many people have, and it's clear there was never any on-the-ground criminal investigation by the New York City Police Department. Just never took place. They were overrun by federal efforts that clearly did not investigate that effort, that event that cost over 3,000 Americans and citizens of over 80 other nations their lives. So that's what you do if you're trying to cover something up. We saw that in the King case. You don't conduct a thorough investigation, and we should be used to it by now.
Wow. One of the things that I found really important in your book, you talked about the work of William Schaap, and him saying that if you repeatedly expose individuals to incorrect information, that after a while it just becomes automatic. Even though the information is incorrect, people will just by default, that's what they'll think is real. Even though the information is not accurate, people will think it is accurate, and that's just the way that they'll think because they've been conditioned to think that way. And even if you present them with the accurate information, it's very difficult to shake that original programming of, you've just been bombarded with inaccurate information. Can you talk about how that relates to the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr.?
Yeah, I think it's a very perceptive analysis that Bill Schaap put forward in his testimony at the 1999 trial, and he's perhaps the leading expert on that type of technique of brainwashing an entire population. And we shouldn't be surprised about it, of course. I mean, Himmler and Hitler did the same thing, and it goes back in history as far as you want to go in terms of conditioning the minds of a population. With respect to the King case in particular, the story was from the beginning that there was this lone white assassin. He was, for whatever his reasons, he did this. There was no official involvement. This is a lone nut, and you kept putting that on to people forever, including, as you said, writing it in textbooks and history books as a fait accompli. And people grow up with it. I mean, remember, Martin was killed in 1968, and here we are in 2009, and still the masses of people in the United States have grown up in an informational context which indicated that this James Earl Ray, this lone nut, killed Martin King. And if you can just keep that in front of the people and all of their media exposure, it's very difficult to overcome it. even with the hardest of evidence, most people do not read. Well, most people don't read anything anymore, I suppose. Yeah, that's a problem in the first instance. But if they do read, they're likely to read. Talking about legal thrillers or cases, like to read John Grisham or some things, books of that sort. Act of State was a fringe book. It was never reviewed in America. Orders to Kill was not reviewed in America. You suppress these works even so that the few people who do read are not going to be able to read them. I mean, the New York Times reviewer, Christopher Lieben Haupt, told an editor of a publisher when Orders to Kill came out that he was prepared. He had an interview. He had a review prepared of that book in November of 1995, and he was told to pull it. It's the first time in 25 years, he said, that he had been told to pull a review. They're afraid to let this see the light of day. Goodness knows where it might go if they do. So that's the part of the whole mind, control of a population. Difficult to overcome, I might add.
I agree wholeheartedly. I'm trying to do as much as I can. Hopefully people will read. If they check out this program, they'll get a copy of Act of State and Orders to Kill to get more information about this. Justice, if you're there and you have some more questions you would like to ask Mr. Pepper, please go forward.
How do you think your book is constructive in working against racism and white supremacy?
How do I think, sorry, Justice, I have a little trouble. How do I think my book is what?
How do you think your book is constructive in working against racism and white supremacy?
Well, I think I hope the work and reflected in the books is constructive in that it sets out or attempts to set out as much of the truth about how this terrible crime took place, and what was and who was behind it, and why it happened. And if I succeeded doing that, and there will be 3 books on this case, and then that's it. But if I succeeded doing that with these books, then even though only a relatively small number of people may be able to get the information and read it, nevertheless, at least it's there for history. Hopefully, there'll be some way that these books can be perpetuated and can be available, so that future generations who really would like to know the truth or who would question the official story will be able to read them and able to learn and able to perhaps benefit as citizens of a republic from the example of what governments do when they are allowed to do it and to eliminate leaders like Dr. King. So hopefully that those books will serve some purpose.
How do you work to produce justice?
Well, the first thing you have to do in order to have justice really is to try to ascertain what is the truth, and then you work very hard to that. We were unable to get a real trial for James Earl Ray when he was alive. He died in 1998. We were able to do a civil trial against Lloyd Jowers, who was one of the participants in the assassination, and other unknown conspirators. And as a result of that trial, we were able to put all the evidence under oath and show effectively what happened, how Martin King was killed, why he was killed. And that's the struggle for justice. I'm a lead counsel, expert witness or expert counsel on international law issues of universal jurisdiction in Spain before the court in Madrid that is investigating war crimes and crimes against humanity that were committed by the American government previously, subsequent to the starting of the Iraq War and activity following 9/11. And that effort is designed to try to bring justice to all the victims who were lost at 9/11, but also to the many, many, many victims of torture, kidnapping, illegal detention, and those events that took place as a result of 9/11. So we seek justice for those people, on behalf of those people, and it's a difficult struggle, and all you can do is the best you can each step of the way.
Okay, that's all.
Okay?
Mr. Pepper, you talked about William Schaff's work and the difficulty in overcoming if you have a lot of programming and people are not giving you accurate information, not giving you truthful information. It's very difficult to overcome that. Can you talk about, you've already alluded to it, the really total absence of media coverage of the 99 trial where you were one of the attorneys in the assassination of Martin Luther King, the absence of coverage of that trial, and the work of Mr. Gerald Posner, who has also written a book about the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr., although he does not share your opinion, your conclusion of what took place in Memphis.
Yeah, well, the 99 trial, Posner wrote his work. He did some investigation for maybe 2-3 years, very superficial stuff, and came down on the side of the official story. But he did the same thing of the Kennedy case. He seems to be surfaced every once in a while with respect to these kinds of cases, and certainly serves the government's line without talking to most witnesses or really having involvement in terms of coming to grips with the evidence that's right in front of him. But so he does a very good job of in my view, of disinforming because he doesn't do a thorough investigation. I guess the 99 trial, which Posner, by the way, said he was going to come and monitor, but then never showed up at all. The media stayed when there was really controversial testimony going on. A lot of times they were in the hallway; they weren't in the courtroom. When Mrs. King testified, and the members of the King family testified, they came in and they recorded that testimony. But they stayed in the hallway for the most part. They were not interested, and they never did cover the depth of the testimonial evidence at that trial, and that's simply because they don't want to report it. They don't want the people to know about it. Most people don't even know the trial took place, much less what was said there. They don't even know that it happened. You ask people in the streets of any city of America, and whether such a trial took place, 9 out of 10, I'm sure, will tell you that they didn't even know there was a trial. I mean, I continually come up against this. So it's again the reality. So what does that mean? It means that the government is heavily involved in controlling media and information, flow of information to the people of the republic, the citizens of this nation. Now, we should know this. Carl Bernstein taught us this back in the 70s. that the CIA had at that time over 400 people involved in publishing enterprises in the United States. He specifically said the Times had 12, for example, New York Times had 12, that the Times publisher, Sulzberger, gave Alan Dulles 12 slots on the Times, from editorial down to stringers. And that's what they do. They have a presence, and they have a presence in media institutions across the country. When that is the case, you can't expect that there's going to be any independent coverage of these kinds of events. That's the reality.
I'm just curious, Mr. Gerald Posner, was his book suppressed from coverage in the same manner that your book was? Did people withhold publishing reviews about his work?
No. Posner's book was well reviewed and displayed and put about, and and he had I think a well-funded book tour, as I recall, and his book for a period of time was in the souvenir room, or the library room of the Civil Rights Museum in Memphis. They have never put my book in the Civil Rights Museum. Any of my books have never been there. A couple of people have come up with a book called The 13th Juror. Now, that book is the entire transcript of the 99 trial, as well as other relevant depositions and affidavits that relate to this story. It's a huge book. It's a great work for law schools and university history classes, people of that sort, and that it's totally factual. I mean, the transcript is unedited, straight. And one of the people who produced the book was the actual court reporter in Memphis. So that book, The 13th Juror, I think it's on Amazon.com. That's a huge historical document that should be in schools and libraries, or in private homes, of course. But it's also not going to be reviewed.
Wow.
That won't happen.
Again, Mr. William Pepper, author of Act of State and Orders to Kill. I normally ask this at the beginning of the program, but this is very important information, and I definitely want to make sure we got this information out as much as possible. You are a white male, is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. I have unfortunately concluded that we are in a global system of racism, white supremacy, and the definition that I use for both racism and white supremacy is a global system of people who classify themselves as white and are dedicated to abusing and or subjugating everyone in the known universe whom they classify as not white. Do you feel that such a system exists, and do you think that is an accurate definition?
Well, I mean, I think the greatest evil that has been perpetrated on peoples of this planet has been perpetrated by white people. I don't see any question about that. They have dominated Africa and African cultures. They've tried to dominate Asia and Asian cultures, and it certainly has all of the characteristics of a kind of international or global racism. The driving force, in my view, behind this type of oppression historically has always been economic. It hasn't been because you got a group of people in one continent to develop munitions, skills, and they can suppress at other people, and they're determined to do it because those people are non-white or Native Indians or Native Africans. It's because those Native Indians and Native Africans have enormous assets and wealth as a part of their indigenous heritage, and the economic thrust to control and dominate this wealth, which is, in my view, a characteristic of the history of capitalism and colonialism, which go hand in hand, is the driving force. I mean, the Spaniards went into, I spent a fair amount of time in South America. Spaniards went into South America and just decimated, as you know, ancient cultures, civilizations there in order to try to get at their gold. And we see that going on everywhere in the world, and throughout the history of the world. And I think one of the things that Africa has to do, I have spent a lot of time in Africa, one of the things that Africa has to be concerned very much about in the 21st century is a new colonialism. And sure, the white Europeans and the white Americans through neo-colonialist efforts would love to continue to control those areas of the world and their economies and their wealth. But they haven't got the resources to do that at this point in time that the Chinese have. And so I think one has to be very, very careful. And our African brothers and sisters have to be very careful that they don't go through another phase of effectively being ripped off and economically subjugated by a new force. And the Chinese, of course, have great sources of income, the strongest capital position on the planet of any country. So, yes, I think certainly racism has dominated so much of the culture in this country that we have yet to go anywhere near overcoming that. Anywhere near overcoming that. I was in Memphis a week ago, down there for a week, taking depositions, final statements related to the third book, and I got a picture of the Klan that I hadn't had that degree of depth before, and this is nothing less than sheer evil, that we could produce people with such hatred of another people just on the basis of skin color is devastating to me. But it is a part of the legacy of this country, and I dare say it's still alive and well in many sections of America.
You are an attorney. I am not an attorney, but I do try to make sure that folks answer the question. I'm not sure that I got an answer as to whether or not you feel there is a global system of racism, white supremacy, and if you feel the definition that I gave was accurate. So I want to make sure we're clear on that before I go forward. Do you feel that there is a global system of racism, white supremacy, and do you think the definition that I gave is accurate?
Well, I think I'm saying that. I think I did try to answer. I think my position is that there is, yes, that there is, that the racism is a result throughout the world, and that it has existed throughout the world. Yes, but what I'm pointing to is the underlying economic motive that is used by these white supremacists to dominate people of color everywhere in the world. No, they're not just going after people of color because they're people of color. They're going after people of color because they want their wealth. And they want to control their wealth. And racism develops as a part of that whole dynamic.
Okay. I want to check to see if Justice, if she has some more questions. I did want to throw out just my opinion. I could be incorrect. It seems like most of the wealthy so-called nations are white areas of the world. This area, predominantly white people, Europe, mostly white countries. If I was in a position where I was going to look for areas to dominate based on controlling resources and wealth, I'd probably be looking at white areas. The non-white areas, so-called third world areas, they look like they're not doing too well in comparison to the white areas. So.
Oh, they're not. They're not. Of course they're not. But that's because they've been oppressed for centuries, absolutely dominated. Their cultures have been eliminated, wiped out, by the invading European forces, in particular, and hand in hand with the Christian Church, frankly. I mean, the Christian Church has gone forward wherever the warriors go. The church has been there right with them. So, this has been a concentrated effort, and the reason the non-white areas of the world, the vast wealth that they have, has not been developed or used is precisely because they've been oppressed, and it's Europe, primarily Europe, that's done it. Of course, in our lifetimes, it's the United States that has bases in virtually every area of the world, and the militarization of the planet is largely a byproduct of American industry and its own militarism.
Mm-hmm. Justice, do you have some additional questions you would like to ask Mr. William Pepper?
How do white people keep information from non-white people?
They keep it from non-white people the same way they keep it from white people. The masters of this country, the people who really run this country, dominate the media. And as I tried to point out earlier, in my view, they are just not going to let information out into the mass media if they don't want it out there. So they keep it. They suppress it, but they're suppressing it just as for white people, in my view, and just as well as for non-white people. No one gets this information that they should have with respect to what's really going on and how their society is really run. So it's suppressed, particularly with respect to non-white people, and I'm talking now about African Americans as well as Asians, as well as Native Americans. They, of course, have been in our whole history badly oppressed, and yet they try to hide the truth of that oppression from them as well as from whites, but particularly from them, because if blacks knew and the minority people knew the degree of the oppression and cultural emasculation as a heritage of the whole history of slavery in particular, they would become potentially a revolutionary force. That was the reason the Army started its investigation of Martin King, Martin King's father and family way back, and grandfather way back, because they saw, with the Russian Revolution in 1917, they saw the potential revolutionary force of black people, and the Army was afraid of them, and so they have to try to keep them, dumbing them down, and that's what they did, and to this day they continue to do that. Okay?
What ways do you know of how to get information about who killed Martin Luther King?
Read the 2 books that I wrote. That's the best way you're going to get any information about what happened to Martin King, unless you want to conduct your own investigation for 30 years. Okay, listen, Gus, I've got to get ready to go.
What?
You have another one? Okay. What is it?
What evidence was used to show that James Earl Ray did not kill Martin Luther King?
My belief in his innocence and the suppression of the truth of what really happened from the world.
Thank you.
Okay. Right. I've got to sign off at this point. Okay.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Pepper. Appreciate you sharing some of your time with us and this information. Very grateful for it. Thank you so much, Mr. Pepper.
You're welcome.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome. Right. Goodbye.
Goodbye. We'll take a quick commercial break, and Justice and myself will be right back after this commercial.
Is racism hurting you? On issues of race, are you unable to speak, think, and act with clarity and confidence? Are you tired of laughing when nothing is funny, smiling when you are not happy, agreeing when you really disagree? At counterracism.com, you can learn specific strategies and techniques to counter the behaviors of the people who practice racism in all areas of activity, using words correctly, following counter-racist logic, even counter-racist science projects designed to reveal what racism is, how it works, and how to counter it. The open source code writing format allows you to pick and choose from a variety of counter-racist suggestions so you can produce the code that works for you. Stop by counterracism.com today and help replace racism with justice.
That's counter-racism.com.
Welcome to the desert of the real.
Peace, family. This is your brother, Hollop, a.k.a. Mr. Holipsis, a.k.a. the Buzz Killer. Tune in to Holipsism's Haven every Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we discuss the social, economic, and political issues of the day with a common-sense approach, an African-centered perspective, and a universal sensibility. Call-in number 347-843-4874. That's 347-843-4874. To check out related YouTube videos, blogs, and show archives, visit www.holipsism.com. That's www.holipsism.com. I'm making it hard to get your Negro on. Hotep, Black Power.
There's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind.
Context of White Supremacy, Gusty, Renegade, and Justice. Doing another hour show. I hate hour shows because I feel like I don't have enough time to get the information. His book, Act of State, I kind of wish I had read both of them for the show, but I was able to read Act of State, and it is just full of information. Again, he didn't just write the book. He was an attorney in the trial, the 1999 trial on the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr., and he had tons of evidence in the book that we could have taken time to break down, specifically the rifle that they alleged that James Earl Ray used in the assassination. Sight was off, considerably off, so many inches to the left, so many inches down. Black enforcement officials who had been assigned to Martin Luther King Jr. when he had gone to Memphis previously, that protection was removed. They were replaced with white enforcement officials. You already know that wasn't a good thing as it played out for Martin Luther King. Just tons of information. People who made confessions about their involvement or things that they saw. Witnesses being mistreated, things of that sort. I highly encourage you, read Act of State. If you have the time, read Act of State and Orders to Kill. Just tons of information about the execution of Martin Luther King Jr. And the involvement of very powerful people. As I said, he has in the book evidence that the military was heavily involved in what took place in Memphis. He even has in his book that there was evidence of military surveillance of lots of non-white people who participated in the so-called civil rights movement dating all the way back to 63 and 64. And he has in the book evidence that military personnel were in place to, at times, go out to execute different non-white individuals who were attempting to counter racism during the 1960s. So I would highly encourage you to read the book. I wish we'd had him here for the full 2 hours. So much information. Wish the white person had been more generous with his time. And I also wanted to point out this show got moved twice. That was not Gus T. Renegade. This show was supposed to go down on Saturday, December 12th at 4 p.m. Eastern. He moved that show. He said he was caught up doing deposition or something. I actually had to call him to find this out. I suspect he would not even have alerted me if I hadn't called him the morning of to double check. But it got moved to, he said, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific today, Thursday, December 17th. I called him just to confirm on Wednesday, and he said, well, let's make it 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. So anyone, if you were expecting the show to be a little bit later today, that's why. White person consistently moved times for the program, so it wasn't able to go off the times that it was originally scheduled to air. That's what happened. At any rate, I do hope individuals found the information constructive. Justice, what did you think about what Mr. Pepper had to share?
I was going to say that, do you think that Mr. Pepper was getting bothered at the end of the show?
Do I think he was getting bothered at the end of the show?
Yes.
I'd say he seemed like a pretty comfortable white guy. I mean, he's an attorney. He's well off enough to move his family to a different country. He said that because they were being mistreated when he began the investigation into King's assassination. So he seemed pretty comfortable. I do think he might not have liked so much being really pressed about the system of white supremacy and your insistence about white people withholding information from non-white people. I think it seemed like he made a concerted effort to say that, other white people withhold information from white people. It's not just non-white people. I think he said that both times when you asked him questions about why and how white people withhold information from non-white people. He said that both times. White people withhold information from white people too, which is true, but that wasn't the question that you asked. He might have been slightly bothered. I don't think he was as bothered as Jessica Pettit when she was on the program. Like, I think she was clearly bothered. He didn't seem quite that upset. Did you think he was bothered, Justice?
Yeah, kind of how he was sounding at the end of the show.
What question specifically? Like when you asked him about how white people withhold information from non-white people, do you think he sounded bothered there, or?
No, it was, what ways do you know of how to get information about who killed Martin Luther King?
Okay.
And he was like, well, you can just read my 2 books, and then the other thing. And then I was thinking that he could give a little bit more information. I
see. Yeah, he said you could read my 2 books, or you can conduct your own investigation for 30 years. That's a little flippant. I would highly tell folks, if you're tuning in, the books do have a lot of information. I know Back of the Bus also checked Mr. Pepper's book out, and I think he would co-sign on that. He's, I believe, with us on the line. Back of the Bus, are you there?
Yes, I am. Greetings, Gus and Justice.
Greetings, sir. I guess, number one, I said you would co-sign, you read Active State. Would you co-sign and say that it is good information, and did you think Mr. Pepper was bothered towards the end of the program?
I would co-sign and say it is full of information, attention to details, transcripts of interviews. Regarding Mr. Pepper at the end of the interview, I do believe he was a bit not as helpful as he could have been. And when you asked him how can an individual find information about the events leading to the death of Martin Luther King, he said, get my books or conduct an investigation for 30 years. I think the white man could have been a bit more helpful. Just my opinion.
Yeah, did you think he shared? You said he could have been more helpful on the program. Did you think the information he shared was constructive, or do you feel like he really didn't share very much constructive information with us based on what you read in his book?
I appreciate him being on the program, but based on what I read in his book, I believe he could have given more specific details about incidents. But yeah, and his book was written, I believe, published before one of his more recent trials, and some of the transcripts weren't fully available because of sensitivity needed for the trial to continue. And I was also curious if he could have divulged some of that information and provided more details than he provided in his book.
Yeah, he might have been sitting on that for his third book. He might have been practicing racism. It could have been both. I would say if you're non-white, suspect he was definitely practicing racism and not being as helpful as he could have. I know Orders to Kill, that came out in '95, so that came out before the '99 trial even went down. Act of State came out after that, and I believe his next book, he didn't give the title. So I guess whenever it comes out next spring, you check that out, see what information he adds from that.
For sure.
Yeah. Did you think he had constructive information to share, Justice?
Yes.
Let's see. I wish he could have been here a tad longer. I like Back of the Bus, read the book Details. I mean, when white people put their mind to it that they're going to really investigate and figure out what happened, man, they can go through something with a fine-tooth comb and uncover all kinds of stuff. I remember one of the passages in the book, he talked about the rifle, the alleged murder weapon in the case, and he talks about how there's strong suspicion that the rifle that is currently being held and marked as the official murder weapon in this case is not, in fact, the actual murder weapon. That he talked to one of the individuals who said he tossed the actual murder weapon in the river. Mr. Pepper wanted to dredge the river to get this weapon, and he commented and was dejected and kind of sad that they couldn't, go and dredge the river. They knew where it was, and people were like, whole cars have been lost here. This is just not a practical step to take here. And he was just like, we know where it is. We can get it. Man, if white people had that same type of attitude about replacing white supremacy with justice, this show would not exist. There was somebody else that called in. Your number's showing as 111.
Greetings, everyone.
Greetings, Mr. 720. Glad you could call in, sir.
I'm glad I had the opportunity to call in also. I wanted to give my half a cent in terms of what Justice had asked you about Mr. Pepper in terms of his attitude, I guess, and how he seemed. I wholeheartedly agree that, to put it mildly, he didn't seem very nice towards the end of the show. And I'm just going to be blunt and direct. Intuitively, it was the funniest thing. The thing that hit me was I got the feeling he felt it was beneath his dignity to be answering questions coming from a 10-year-old. That's what hit me. But indeed, I did feel the negativity. It's interesting, it's from the mouths of babes that she asked the question, because I did feel it too. Indeed, I did. Very interesting. That it just seemed. I don't know what his time schedule was like in terms of what he told you and how long he could be there and whatnot. And much of the show, the time thing was thrown off here too. But it just seemed to be so abrupt after she had asked the question. Read my book or whatever he said. It was something was coming through to me too also.
Very interesting. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm sorry. And there were a couple questions I wish that he could have stayed a little longer, because I really wondered if he would have thought when he said that the information is suppressed from both white people and non-white people. I think ultimately the real question is, who's in control of suppressing that information? Is it ultimately other white people? So that would have been the real thing, which for me says ultimately the people who have the information are once again white people.
Good question. Again, why I would much rather have full 2 hours to have the guest able to go much slower with questions and really get more into detail about things that they say. He did say before the program he could stay for 60 minutes. So I knew that going into the program. Other people have said that and then ended up staying longer. But he did say 60 minutes. So I was really making more of a conscious effort to just try and see how much information we could get from the book before the program wrapped up. If you notice, I didn't even ask him about System of White Supremacy until later in the program, just because I couldn't deal with any taking a half hour to get through that question and not getting to the info in the book. So he did say up front that he could do about an hour or so. So that was up front, but very interesting. Everyone seems to be consensus, feeling that he was a little rude towards the end of the program, and you feeling he was agitated about answering questions from a 10-year-old.
Oh, yes. It was a very interesting thing. Yes, very. And like I say, it immediately came through. For whatever reason, I don't know why, but that's what hit me. That was the first thing that hit me. And generally, I don't ignore things like that.
Did you feel that? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. Oh,
I was just going to ask if you felt that from the first time she was asking questions. Did you feel?
No, I did not. But I don't know if I heard Justice's first questions, but I did hear her ask other questions. But it seemed to me, from what I got to hear, towards the end there, she had kind of multiple questions, a bit more questions. And then it seemed as though something got to him. At least, like I say, I didn't get to hear the entire show. But I don't know if she had 3 or 4 questions with her last bunch of questions that she asked. But that seemed to trigger something. The other thing I want to say is, as interesting, and I think he said something about a reviewer would not, or was told to pull a review about his book. Oh, they lost me.
You're here. We can hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We're here. You're here. We can hear you. Yes, sir. He did.
Oh,
say
okay.
That.
Yes, and I'm not sure why he said that. I wasn't. I was being confused with some of the things that he was saying. Actually, I was being confused with many of the things he said. But I thought it interesting. Did he say something about the people who suppress the information? And I'm just kind of summing it up. Don't want the masses of people to know what really happened. Did he say something to that effect?
Yes, sir.
Well, then, the question I would have loved to ask him is, why didn't they just kill him too?
Who is that, Mr. Sullivan?
Mr. Peppers.
Oh, I mean,
because,
sorry.
Yes, if they have this information is And then that led me to another question. I said, so, okay, well, if they don't feel it's necessary to kill you because of the information in your book that you say they want to suppress, as a reviewer being one and who was told that, well, then what I really wanted to ask him is, do you have information that they would want to kill you for? And if you do, can you tell us that?
Very interesting. Would have been interesting to hear his response, particularly to the first question. I know he did comment at the very, very beginning of the program about how he moved his family to Cambridge because they were getting death threats when he began this work. So it would have been interesting to hear his response to that question. Yeah, I don't know.
You know, but interestingly, too, Renegade, even with moving to Cambridge, as I think Neely Fuller says, if they want to get you, well, I think, like you say, the lengths they go to uncover information, I don't think Cambridge is far enough away.
For sure. If they really want you, for sure.
So it was interesting, but
Yes, sir.
He's a white person. I would put that out first and foremost. I believe Mr. Bill Ayers, when he was here, said up front that he felt like, or he didn't say it, he felt like, he said, period, him being a white person has a large part to do with how he was able to do the work that he did in blowing up federal buildings, and not in jail right now. He's a professor, a distinguished professor at the University of Illinois at Chicago, and other non-white people who were doing work against racism, not blowing up federal buildings, died, went to jail, that sort of thing. So I would definitely say him being a white person probably aided. That was one of the questions I definitely wanted to ask him. Just, him being a white person, does he think that aided him in being able to get at this information? Again, why I would like to have 2 hours, really take my time with the guests and get at questions. This was really just to see how much information we could dump out. But, hopefully, some of the information he shared was relevant enough. And again, I would highly recommend just read the book. Read the book. Lots of good stuff there. I've read quite a few books about COINTELPRO, and I learned a lot reading this book that I did not know. And I think Back of the Bus could co-sign on that as well.
I could definitely. One thing this book really made a good example of is just how crucial information is. It seems like a lot of energy was spent just hounding information, and also another good example it revealed was how being white is a benefit just all over the place in the system of white supremacy. Mr. Pepper's resources were just abounding. It seemed like the rifle that you mentioned earlier, Gus, the incorrect rifle being held, I remember there was some testing being done, and help me out on this. I think the bill of the initial test, like a forensic rifling test, came to $30,000, which they found out after the fact, and they just kept proceeding. It seemed like the people that wanted this information, the white people, were able to get it and had the resources to back them up.
I think there were several points in the book that highlight the resources that white people have when they really want to get information or they really want to get something done. Even James Earl Ray, he was, before he's dead now, but when he was still alive and in jail, he was having some health issues, and he needed some expensive medical treatments, and they got it done. No obstacles. He's riding with us. I'm sorry?
I said no sweat broke, and just, nothing stopped him, really.
Yeah. I mean, they knocked it out. This, and I mean, we weren't talking about $500. We're talking about thousands of dollars in medical procedures, and knocked it out. No problem. We will not be deterred. As I said, that moment where he talked about the rifle it being buried in the riverbed. And Mr. Pepper expressed, real disappointment. Like, it's right there. We could just go dredge the river. I mean, it's right there. I mean, just, we should be able to get things done. That's how we do. We get things done. Put our mind to it. Price will not be an obstacle. We will not be impeded. Really stood out a lot in the book in various ways. Again, I would highly recommend getting Acts of State and probably Orders to Kill as well. I think that one has different information because they hadn't went to trial. So I would suggest reading his work to get at more of the details that we didn't get to on the program.
Yes, I did catch, he said earlier in the program, first thing you have to do to reach justice is try and ascertain the truth. Mm-hmm. Or try and ascertain that which is. And I think his book and also him being on the program is a great example of how easy it is for white people to get the correct information and how difficult it is for non-white people. And just this question, an excellent question regarding why do white people keep information from non-white people. And even the question, how would an individual go about finding information leading to the death of Martin Luther King? He basically said you should read my book or conduct a 30-year investigation. I think for a non-white person that could be very difficult to do with limited resources, and based off of what history has shown is very dangerous. Shows us in the predicament. White people have information and the ability to get the correct information at all times.
I would agree wholeheartedly. I would agree wholeheartedly. And him saying that, he said he was a white person, that's pretty much saying if you want information, go ask a white person.
For sure. For sure.
That's pretty much what it sounds like it boils down to. You want information, go ask a white person. I would say, hey, nothing incorrect about that. I do that on this show all the time. If you want information, go ask white people, but keep in mind they do practice racism, so you need to keep that in mind. They number one strategy is to be deceptive, so you do need to keep that in mind. But I mean, white people, I think, have evidenced worldwide. They have all the information that you could want about pretty much any subject matter. They would be the folks to go ask and inquire any questions that you have, knowledge that you need. Might want to go ask some white people.
Definitely.
I wanted to make sure we did not miss Justice. If you can share your email address with the folks so we don't miss that.
justice.asap@yahoo.com. Again, justice.asap@yahoo.com.
Outstanding. I'm just curious, Justice, have you felt with the guests that we've had, white guests, if you can recall, have you felt like they have been bothered about you asking questions? Have you felt that on the program before?
Sometimes. Sometimes. Not really.
Okay. So it doesn't happen all the time, but it has happened before. It doesn't happen.
Yes.
Okay. Maybe we should keep track of that. The times where you feel like the guest, if it's a white person, is bothered about you asking questions. Make sure you note that before the program ends. You can do it with them there too. Or that would be a good question. If you think they are bothered, you can ask, are you upset about me asking questions? That would be, I'd be interested to know that.
Okay.
Yeah, that'll be something we can keep track of. And the folks who are listening into the program, you can keep track as well. If you think the white guests are upset about Justice asking questions, Mr. 720, the programs that you've heard, have you heard other examples where you think the white guest has been upset about Justice asking questions?
Yes, I have. Yes, I have. But this one was different. And Justice? Yes. Are you there? Yes. when you asked Mr. Peppers, I'm not sure, was your question about how he does an investigation? Was that your question? when he told you to read his book? What exactly was your question?
What ways do you know of how to get information about who killed Martin Luther King?
Okay, so when you asked him that question, Justice, did you want him to tell you some of the ways, since you said ways, that he investigated, or some of the methods or tools that he used to find out how Dr. King was murdered? Is that some of what you wanted to know? Interesting.
Yes.
Okay. You know, as I'm sitting here, because I thought that was when she asked the question, when you asked the question, Justice, I thought to myself, oh, yes, I said, that's extreme. That would be extremely constructive because, as you said, Renegade, white people are deceptive. So if those tools, if he could have given a couple of those tools or methods on air, perhaps we non-white people may not have done an investigation of the nature that he did, but to have knowledge of some of those tools perhaps would be very helpful and useful in uncovering information of other sorts, and to have knowledge of those tools, as far as I'm concerned, would be helpful. So I thought that the question she asked was extreme, and hearing you restate it again, Justice, it confirms for me that what I thought you were asking is indeed what you were asking. And for him, for Mr. Peppers to flip you off in the way that he did and simply say, read my book, I was like, but it didn't seem to me that if she wanted to do that, it seemed to me she could have simply asked him, or you could have simply asked him, Justice, how do I get your book? Mm-hmm. So it was very interesting.
Wow.
I agree.
And all I can say, young lady, is you go, girl.
Thank you.
He did make it seem like the skills to get information, that those skills, once you have them, it's pretty easy to get information. Like he said that the Memphis Police Department, that they did not conduct an investigation. He said standard police procedures, they would have been able to solve this crime pretty quickly. I believe he said that almost verbatim on the program. So it would seem like whatever skills you need to inquire information, to do an investigation, it would seem like once you got them, you should be pretty effective at getting information based on what he said. Very interesting. Again, why Justice is here, and again, why I don't think there's anything incorrect about having someone who's 10, who is interested in learning about racism and establishing justice. I don't think there's anything incorrect about that at all, and I don't think anybody should be bothered or upset about a 10-year-old, or even if she was 5, or, whatever, being interested in asking questions and learning. I don't think anyone should be bothered about that or flippant. I don't see a problem at all, and if it is a problem, I would hope anyone who thinks it's a problem would step forward and let me know what the problem is, because I don't see one. I think it's great. I have learned a lot having Justice asking questions of the folks who've been here, particularly the white people.
I second that.
For sure. Back of the bus, could you? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead if you had something to say, Justice.
I was going to say thank you.
Back of the bus, could you please plug your blog or blogs, please, sir?
Yes, sir. The blog is nonwhitealliance.wordpress.com. Again, that's nonwhitealliance.wordpress.com.
Much obliged. Thank you.
Thank you.
I wanted to, I just saw an update on Tiger Woods. Sad story continues, but before I did that, I did want to make sure that I got Plugged Cree's program. She has a show coming up on December 20th, this Sunday. It will be 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Central, 10 a.m. Pacific. She'll be talking about the exact same film we talked about here yesterday, Skin, about the two white people in South Africa who gave birth to a non-white child. She'll have British film reviewer Nathan Koblenitz. He'll be on the program. They'll be chatting about Skin. Should be very interesting. Please make sure you support her program. If you caught the show yesterday, you should already be interested knowing what that story is about. They'll be chatting about it this Sunday. Again, it'll be at 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon, 10 a.m. Pacific. Counter-racist evolving engineer right here at Blog Talk Radio. There is, if you look at the show from yesterday, there's a link to that program in the description, or you can just do a search on Blog Talk for Counter-Racist Engineer, and her show will pop up, and check it out this weekend. Did you all see the news report today that Tiger Woods' white wife is seeking a divorce? Did you all see that?
I did not.
I did not.
Yeah, I saw it earlier in the day. The little news blip came up on my email that his wife is seeking a divorce. I just shook my head. I thought I had saw a previous report where he was alleged to have offered her between $40 and $50 million to tough it out and fix the marriage, and she declined. And then today, the report of a divorce. Just continues to get worse. I just shake my head. It's really all I can say. Did you all have any thoughts about what you have observed with the whole Tiger Woods debacle?
I can't say that I mean, he's a victim of racism, but I can't say that I've seen a white person be mistreated to this degree in regards to their personal life. Yeah. A white woman. Stay away from that white.
Dangerous. Very, very dangerous. I don't know, Mr. 720, did you have a view on what you have observed or read about with regards to Mr. Woods?
You know, I think the one thing that keeps coming to mind, and it's interesting, it just comes over and over and over anytime I hear anything about Tiger Woods, is O.J. Simpson. And the reason is you know, I know very little about Tiger Woods, if anything, but the one thing that I do know is that he did say that he wanted to be looked at in a certain way. I think he said Caucasian.
Mm-hmm.
And that seemed to indicate a confusion to me, because I think that white people, at least even from some of the people that he played golf with, or some of the clubs or country clubs that he was allowed to come into, at one point I think they had a lot of jokes that they were telling about fried chicken and stuff, and things of that nature, which to me suggested that those white people weren't thinking he was Caucasian anything. They were simply thinking he was another nigger. And so I think I had read something about O.J. Simpson, and I don't know if you had said this also, where I think he said one of the best moments in his life was where O.J. said he had walked into a restaurant, and some white people saw him walking with another black person, and they said, I think some children said, "Hey, mommy, there goes O.J. Simpson with a black man." And so what am I trying to say? What O.J. ultimately ended up saying was that it was such a good moment in his life because he wasn't seen as a black person, non-white person. And to some extent, I kind of get the same feeling with Tiger Woods. And all I can say is O.J. thought he was in like Flint. But, and I kind of suspect Tiger Woods may have had the same feeling, but sure enough, true to form. The white folks said, I don't think so. And that's what it comes to mind. And I think maybe Lori and Ashley should make a T-shirt that says, "Don't forget O.J."
Wow.
I think that might be a good T-shirt for many of our non-white celebrities who get pretty high up, because there are a few of us who get that kind of money, I guess. I mean, few non-white people, as far as I'm concerned, relatively, who become billionaires. Although maybe if this divorce goes through, then that reminds me of another sitcom that used to come on, what was that, In Living Color? And the two guys would come on, and perhaps maybe Tiger's wife is saying this right now, "More money, more money, more money." So he may not be a billionaire for much longer, I don't know. But at any rate, I just say don't forget O.J.
Yeah, I just, cash registers will be rolling on this one. And she was a nanny. You were talking about some of the white people he played golf with. His wife, or ex, whatever, the white woman he was married to, she used to be a nanny for another white person that Tiger Woods golfed with. He's a professional golfer as well. And he had a post that came out not too long ago where he said he was so upset about recommending this white woman to Tiger Woods, and he thought Tiger Woods was a better person, and he's just he feels so guilty for even setting them up in the first place, and he thought Tiger Woods was a better guy, and just, really, really bad comments about Tiger Woods. And I'm like, a nanny? Are you serious? A nanny gets to marry somebody who is making tens of millions of dollars, and you're angry about this? I think she has come out quite well in all of this. I'm not downplaying extramarital affairs. That's not cool. That is a bad thing all the way around. But I mean, I don't think she's going to be struggling not having a phone. I think she's going to be okay. She just bought an island. I saw that too. She just bought an island. That was in the news.
Oh, wow.
She bought an island. I could Google it right now and find it, but it was just reported she bought an island. This was sometime within the last 5 days. It doesn't sound like she's doing that bad. If I go from being a nanny to buying islands, ends are meeting quite well. Life is not that tough. She does not sound like a victim of white supremacy in my book. But maybe she got a bad island. I don't know. Maybe it wasn't a cool spot. There was a post. I saw it. It wasn't on my blog, but I saw it on my blog. Someone put it on their blog. I suspect a white person, and someone wrote this article that was comparing Tiger Woods to President Obama and talking about how they both are so-called mixed, and both were so beloved and seem to, be at the best of their field. And now they're, just tragic screw-ups. They've made all these errors and are just they're not the golden beloved individuals that they once were. And the person who made everyone aware of this article or blogged about it was saying that they could not find any means of comparing Tiger Woods to President Obama other than the fact that they're both non-white. She said the male who blogged about this said he just could not see any other connection between the two. Had no idea what President Obama did that was so bad, where he's being vilified. Couldn't figure that out at all, and couldn't think of any comparisons where white people, and they note in the article there are numerous white people who've had affairs and done all kinds of crazy things, where they get compared to another white person who has done something incorrect or what have you. I thought it was a real interesting post. I didn't even know that, but comparing Tiger Woods with President Obama, just sad all the way through. I didn't even think President Obama had done anything bad, but I guess he has.
Yeah, I've also seen the comparison of Obama and Tiger Woods, and I just found the cover of the Golf Digest online here, and there's a title that says 10 tips Obama can take from Tiger, and there's a picture of Barack Obama crouching with a putting iron, and it looks like Tiger Woods behind him as a caddy, looking over his shoulder. Yeah.
Wow. I did email Dr. John Hoberman, because I remember when he was on the program, he was curious about Tiger Woods, and he thought he was beloved and all that, and I did email him to remind him that I said, more than anything, victim of white supremacy. I didn't get a response, but I did contact him. I'd be very curious to hear his view and how white people are going to treat him once he gets back out and is golfing, how white people are going to feel about him, particularly if he breaks, Jack Nicklaus, if he breaks his record for majors. I'll be real interested to see how white people respond to him. They might be treating him like O.J. and Barry Bonds once he gets back out there. Who knows?
Well, I'll say this, that's an interesting thing also, because I was thinking about that myself, Renegade, and I flashed back to Muhammad Ali, and when he took a stand against the Vietnam War, and how white people took everything from him, said he couldn't box and everything, just had him on the skids. But I think Muhammad Ali, at that time and for the time that he was in the fight game, he was the draw. Ultimately, the fight game and draw, what I'm boiling it down to the bottom line, and that's money in that regard. And in terms of money, the purses and the amount of people, and again, I think it had to do a lot with white supremacy, that he was able to draw in, for whatever reason. He did it in a way that, at least as far as my observations told, no other fighter was able to do. I think with Tiger Woods, I think they've said that the viewership of televised golf has dropped since he's not been playing. I think this is some of the reports that I've heard. And that indicates to me, if they are serious about what they're saying in terms of him being the number one golfer right now, he seems to have a certain kind of drawing power as regards that money too. Mm-hmm. And so unless, and this is just speculation, although it did happen once with Muhammad, and once they allowed him to come back into the game, he drew even more crowds and even more money. And so I was wondering if the same thing may happen with Tiger Woods, unless someone comes along that they consider to be as gifted in terms of hitting those little white balls. But at any rate, right now he does seem to be a big draw, and where white people are concerned, they do seem to want to hold on to that money and make that money big time. So it will be interesting to see, if this all dies down a bit, and once he comes back on the tour, to see if that money factor kind of negates a lot of things. It'll be interesting.
I will for sure be paying attention whenever he makes it back on the course to see how things pan out. I just can't imagine it being the same response as before. I don't know though. Kobe Bryant, he rebounded pretty well. White people they seem pretty cool about him now after the whole rape incident.
And I don't think, as far as I'm concerned, I don't think Kobe Bryant was the kind of draw. And this didn't happen to Jordan, Michael Jordan, but Michael Jordan was also a draw. I think he was in that number one spot in a big way. Just a certain kind of, if you want to call it charisma, or even the way they did things playing the game. I don't think Kobe has reached that level as a Michael Jordan in terms of that kind of drawing power, although he is a huge draw. I just don't see that kind of drawing power. So I don't. Whereas Tiger Woods, he is, in terms of playing that game, if we're to believe what white people say, he does seem to be in a class by himself. So it might be a little different.
I am curious. I don't know how it's going to shake out, but I am curious. I did want to make a correction. Tiger Woods' wife did not purchase an island. She purchased a major chunk of an island. They have not disclosed the actual purchase, but it's looking like probably some millions were dropped in purchasing this chunk of real estate that is on an island. And they are also reporting that it seems white people, booking agents, are taking bets on Tiger Woods' divorce payoff. That's also it. They right now the odds are 25-1 that the settlement will exceed $500 million.
Wow.
Yeah, that's white people are betting how much money the white woman is going to get from Mr. Woods. Pretty sad. Pretty sad. Yeah, I mean, this is just a whole little circus affair for white people right now. And I also want to make sure I corrected. This was from the program with Dr. Welsing. Dr. Eddie Moore Jr. is not married to the white woman admitted racist. That is his girlfriend, to my knowledge. That's what he said on the program. That's what he said to me, so I did want to make sure I corrected that. Not married to her. His girlfriend. His girlfriend is the white woman. And I actually want to take 5 seconds to play that clip again because I just it's rather incredible, I think, and I hope people listen closely to things that are said on the cows. You never know what people will say, just to make sure people catch it. I'm gonna play it again really quick.
And it may be, and I'm not unwilling to critically look at this. It may be just a personal desire on my part to find a kind of soothing lotion so it doesn't feel so painful what it is that you're saying. So I'm not unwilling to look at that.
Yeah, I thought that was real important. If you did not check out that program with Dr. Moore, that's taking exactly what he said, finding a soothing lotion. Maybe Tiger Woods was doing the same thing. I've seen reports where he said the thing that motivated him most was racism and being mistreated because he was not white. It's on the Counter Racism Network where he said that. Maybe he was looking for a soothing lotion as well so that it wouldn't feel so painful being mistreated as a non-white person, victim of white supremacy. Maybe that's what happened with him as well. I'm not sure, but I would not recommend the lotion of a white woman. As long as the system of white supremacy exists, I would not recommend it at all. I have not seen any evidence where that offers any sort of salve, any sort of peace, any sort of sanctuary from the daily devastation that is the system of white supremacy. If anything, it makes it worse from what I have seen. I could be incorrect, but, you know.
Don't forget OJ.
Yeah. I mean, it's a long list. Emmett Till, I mean, long list of non-white people who have really had their lives ruined at the hands of white women. Marcus Dixon, Jack Johnson. I mean, long. I would hope we wouldn't even have to make such a list at this point, but it is a long list of them who have just had a whole lot of problems with those white chicks, and we still seem to have not put it together that maybe we should think twice about that, but, you know. At any rate, thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Wish we had the whole 2 hours with Mr. Pepper. That would have been interesting, but got an hour, so hopefully the information was constructive and of some value. There are other programs coming up later this month. I just don't have them entered. I know one person, I believe he's from so-called Austria. He's a non-white male, suggested that I get Katrina Brown on the program. She is a white woman. She did a documentary called Traces of the Trade. She has agreed to come on the program. I believe it's December 27th. I have to look and get all the information, but that's supposed to go down later this month as well. She traced her family lineage all the way back to slavery and found out that some of her relatives owned slaves and made a lot of money off of that, and did a whole project about that and trying to bring about some sort of restitution, reparations for non-white people, victims of racism, white supremacy. So it'd be real interesting to hear what she has to say about her whole project and what she's doing to provide restitution to the non-white people. But she'll be here later in the month. Just subscribe. That way you'll know when shows are coming up. And keep an eye out on the Blog Talk page. But I'll get the show programs entered as soon as possible. The people at Blog Talk, they got me more information about the incorrect times posting because I saw it again today with the program posting incorrectly. They said to refresh the cookies on your browser, that should do it. I don't think that that's going to solve the problem because I have checked on different machines and I have observed the same thing where the time posts incorrectly, and people have told me who are in different areas of the world that they have observed the same thing where the times post incorrectly. So I don't know if it has anything to do with stale cookies in the browser. That could be, but I suspect it's not. But that was their response, refresh your cookies. So that's what they said. Just be on the alert for programs and just making sure that the time is correct. I might go ahead and put the actual time in the description so we don't have this problem. But subscribe to the C.O.W.S. We do have other shows coming up for this month. Check the blog, racism-notes.blogspot.com. Again, racism-notes.blogspot.com. And Justice's email address one more time, justice.asap@yahoo.com. That way you can get in touch with her. Anybody have anything they want to say before we wrap things up?
Just one thing. Yes, the Traces of the Trade, the woman who's coming on, that's a show. As soon as you can post, I definitely want to. Because I have one major question I need to ask her.
Okay. You want to save it for the show?
I will save it for the show.
Okay, I will. She should be here for the full 2 hours, so we'll have time to get, everybody can get their questions in and all that. But I believe it's December 27th. I could be incorrect, and, I'll post it so you'll be able to check. But I believe it's December 27th, and I believe it's in the afternoon. I could be incorrect, but I think it's in the afternoon. December 27th, she should be here, Katrina Brown, coming up the end of the month. So, get your questions down. Should be a good program. I'm looking forward to it. Back of the
great.
bus. Oh, no problem. No problem. Back of the bus, did you have anything you wanted to get in?
Just thank you, Justice and Gusty Renegade, for hosting, and correct listening to you, 720 as well. and replace white supremacy with justice.
Same to you, back of the bus. Thank you.
Thank you for supporting the cows.
Amen. Ditto on that. Ditto on that. Thank you for supporting the cows. And again, very serious. 8510. Perhaps Justice will be carrying on the cows, doing it solo. But I'm very serious. 8510. If I don't have that laptop, 8510, Gusty Renegade will be retiring from the cows. MacBook Pro, that's what I would like. If I get another laptop, that will just buy time until the end of the year. But 8510, if I don't have a laptop, I am retiring from the cows, and Justice, she can decide if she would like to go forward and host on her own, which I would tune into that. I'll say that up front. I would still be tuning in and listening if she was going to host by herself. So there we go. Thank you all for supporting. We will be back, I think, December 27th. We might be back before then, but at minimum, we'll be back December 27th with Katrina Brown. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Replace white supremacy with justice as soon as possible. Cows signing out.